So I'm going to do 3 separate videos about this subject. It's about focusing cameras. So we'll do the first one, which is autofocus, second one, which is rangefinders, and the third one is sort of like manual focus, split prisms, ground glass, matte screens, all that sort of business. So yeah, so start with autofocus. I've got a modern-ish Pentax K1 here. So autofocus, where did it come from? Okay, so Leica originally showed its autofocus system at Photokina in like the 70s or something. And these early autofocus systems, it was all built out on the outside. It was like motors on the outside to drive the actual focusing mechanism. And Leica didn't, it was called Project Carfort, I think, was the Leica one. But Leica didn't pursue this. And they entered into a sort of like a technology agreement with Minolta and made a range of cameras. I don't know if it was part of that deal or something else, but basically Leica sold the patents to autofocus to Minolta. And from that, they produced an autofocus camera called the Minolta 7000. And it was the first, well, it wasn't actually the first, it was the first commercially produced camera that had in-body autofocus. So there was no things on that side, so you could change the lenses. The lenses were driven by motors inside the camera, so it's like literally like autofocus, today. Contact actually a couple of years before developed a prototype with a similar system that was like years ahead of the Minolta one, based on the body of a Contact 137, I think, or MD, and basically that worked. That was a good autofocus sort of setup as a prototype, but never went into production because there was some issue with Zeiss, who made the lenses. So Contact could have been first by years, but it was Minolta. So Minolta put the first autofocus like camera as you know it into the market. Pentax did one, sort of not with their outside stuff. I think Nikon did another one. But yeah, so from those original Minolta cameras derived everything we've seen since. Now, autofocus is broken into different sort of areas. You've got active autofocus and passive autofocus. So you do active first, it's really easy. Active is basically something firing out from the camera, getting a bounce back, and that could be ultrasonic waves, that could be infrared. You see the AF assist light comes on, things like that. I mean, the AF assist is probably to illuminate the target for passive or active later anyway. So basically active is something going out of the camera, having a bounce back, and that being red. So that's the active part. But the one that you normally see, the one that all the manufacturers have sort of driven towards, the two are the passive ones, which is contrast detection and phase detection. And they're the two main types. And then they have a hybrid version, a hybrid of the two together. So what's phase detection? It's really complicated to explain, but I'll try. Basically, light comes in, it's split. And this is sort of like the Fisher-Price version of it. Sounds like a rangefinder as well. You get 2 images, well, something's out of focus. 2 images are apart like this. And the computer and the camera can work out the distance between them. So as it pulls the images together, it's probably like a waveform or a phase, strangely. Pulls them together, it spins the motor and brings the image into focus. And this is done with loads of focus points all over the camera. I think it's just in front of the sensor, these focus points, or beneath these focus points. As the light passes through, it gets those measurements where things are out of focus and pulls them together, designates the appropriate focus patch, which is the thing that you see light up when you go to focus, and focuses on that patch. It's very quick. It's not as accurate as contrast, and I'll move on to that in a second. So contrast detection. Contrast detection is software. Phase detection is actual like electronics. Contrast detection is a computer algorithm, and basically what that does, it detects the highest, everything's got contrast on edges. It detects the highest amount, the intensity of contrast. And so it's done very differently. It's sort of, imagine you've got like a hard edge, and as you get towards the hard edge is black. The computer and the camera will sort of go, that's grey, that's grey, that's grey, that's black. And that will be the point. But that be the sort of focus point, but it doesn't. It overshoots, so it can work out that was the. So it goes along. Oh, that's the one. I've gone over. I'll come back. So it has this hunting sort of way of mode of operation. You see this all the time on cameras. Then there's Blackmagic Cinema cameras. It's got an autofocus, and you press it, and it sort of whizzes in and out. And that's it, sort of overdoing the focus point and coming back. Now it can get even worse because obviously at the starting point with contrast detection, it doesn't know whether to go one way or the other. So what can happen when you hit on contrast detection? It can go really blurry. It'll just go the other direction completely because it hasn't worked it out. Then it has to come all the way back again. So it doesn't know its starting point, and it has to work out the end point. Now contrast detection's normally used in live view on camera, and phase detection is normally used through the pentaprism because obviously it's light beams traveling through, where live view is like a video signal. And then what they do is they can combine these two into hybrids, and obviously, so it's using maybe the phase detection very quickly to draw it together, but then the contrast detection to actually get the accuracy, because apparently contrast detection is a bit more accurate than phase detection. So there you go. So you've got the hybrids. Obviously, there's a huge inherent problem with autofocus, and you've got all your patches. It doesn't actually know what you want to focus on. So you get these situations where you point the camera at something and you want like the thing behind it slightly, and the autofocus patches will detect the wrong thing and your camera will focus on the wrong thing. So now we've got a lot of AI being built into cameras. Face detection, cat detection, dog detection, car detection, basic object detection is being built in. So it's really helpful for wildlife photographers and I suppose sports photographers, because it detects the object as well in it, so it makes that discrimination. But in the past, obviously, we didn't have AI and stuff like that. So certain manufacturers came up with some quite interesting solutions to how to discriminate, how to allow you to discriminate what you wanted to focus on. So I've got a Canon EOS 30 here. It's got loads of other names, but this film camera has a system in it, and you calibrate it to your eye. It has 7 focus patches. So once it's calibrated to your eye, if you look at something, and say you've got the 7 crossed like this, if you look at the thing that you really want in focus, it will only use the patch where your eye is looking at. So it's like eye detects your eye where you're really looking. It's quite clever actually if you think about it. I'm sure they could build it into cameras today. So it literally sees where you're looking, and that's the focus patch that it'll select, and then you can fire. That's quite clever. There are some other things about autofocus. It's there's some loads and loads of videos online about things like the AF back button, which is fascinating. Basically what it is when you do this, when you press it and it picks the wrong thing, what you can do is I've got an AF back button here. You can switch on AF back button mode, and then you can select, say, the center focus point on the camera. And once you've got that selected, if you hit AF back at the back, it'll basically focus on your dot, and then you can recompose. And when you hit the shutter button, that's not going to autofocus, that's going to just fire the shutter. So, it separates the focusing from the shutter button basically, and gives you one on the back. So it's like focus, snap, like that. Focus, recompose, snap. So it's to speed up the process, and it helps you discriminate, more easily what you want to actually shoot. So you can do it, pick the focus point you want to use, the center one. There are some other clever ones to do it quickly. Minolta, who obviously gave us this first autofocus camera, were brilliant at chucking technology into cameras. I mean, they solved problems photographers didn't even know they had. My favourite, and I haven't got it on this camera, is the auto zoom, where you can focus in on an object at like 70mm, but when you press the shutter, the zoom snaps back to 35, which is what you want the picture to be, so that you get a 35 frame. So it's like old school pinch zoom. You can actually zoom in, but it'll snap back to the focal length you actually want to take the shot. But they came up with some other clever sort of technology as well, and they chucked it into loads of their cameras, and it's called iStart, and I actually really like this. A lot of people hate it. So you turn the camera on, take the lens cap off, and you just tap it to activate it, and you see something over there. Turn the glasses off. You see something over there you want to shoot. If I bring it up, basically, I haven't done anything. There's 2 eye sensors here, and by the time it hits my face, I'm focused on the subject, and I can just press the button. So that's sort of a bit quicker than an AF back button. So you just bring it up, I'm in focus, back. That's really quick and clever system. I think it was actually Canon invented the AF back button. I mean, everybody, camera manufacturer, realised there was issues with like autofocus and discrimination. But it is amusing that some of these older cameras, like this Minolta Dynax, has got really cool technology in it. I think some of the Panasonics and maybe the recent Sony cameras have actually introduced these sort of like eye tracking and sort of things like that, where it can do it. But they're in these old ones. It's great. But I really do like the eye sensor. It is annoying if you have the camera on and you've got it here, because obviously it thinks your stomach is the eye and keeps trying to focus, so you have to sort of like turn it off for a bit. But when you get it going, you just pick it, snap. You can really go quickly with it, much quicker than an AF button. But again, you sort of still have the same problem. It's sort of like not sure. You have to pick the focus point you want to use. So hopefully that's interesting information about how autofocus works. I'm sure it's going to get much better with AI. It's got much better over the years than these older cameras, but they're just still fun to use. They're still very accurate, very quick. There's some of these are so quick that I can't just tell how much quicker they are than the modern cameras. But yeah, so what I'll do next, we'll go through rangefinders. And rangefinders, it's sort of similar to how face detection works in a way with images. I know it's electronic signals. I'm just trying to make it a bit simpler. But basically, we do rangefinders next, and there was some nice, interesting electronic rangefinder sort of mechanisms that came out that were used by people like Contact. We'll have a quick look at that as well. Anyway, I hope that's informative. I'm still shooting with manual cameras and manual focusing, and so I think there's lots of ways you can focus, whichever suits you. Anyway, thank you for watching.